False Mormon cult prophet is on his way. And he's got religion finally. He's half as old as his fraud of faith. And he's doing his tell-all book. He's got one of the missionaries that knows he's turned into being Catholic now. And he wants to get a lot of stuff off his chest, and he says, oh, I remember back in the 70s, the East Coast. This Catholic doctor wanted to off somebody, but he wanted it to look like an accident. So I had to go show him how to do that the street way, the unseen business way. I'm melting. I can't finish up paging my stuff because the Harbinger folks are stopping the computer from working. So the false Mormon cult prophet, Russell Nelson, heart doctor, half as old as his fraud of a faith, but fraud of a cult. He is laying in the hallway. Jim J and Charlie M went to the cafeteria of that hospital to get some food. And they've come back and he says, I want to go see my friends. He's looking up into that bright light of that hallway. Lights. He says, I want to go see my friends. They have to talk in code. And Jim J says, oh, we're going to take you to see your friends. And they push him down the hallway into that room where they got, Joseph Smith and Brigham Young in those big tanks. So the doctor of Gladys has pushed her into the hallway, and she says, you're going to be doing the operation? And the doctor says, oh no, I've got a specialist coming in, a heart doctor, to do that. They'll be with you to prep you in just a moment. And that's when Jim J and Charlie M push false Mormon cult prophet right up next to her in the hallway there, and he's long past practicing medicine, half as old as his fraud of a cult. And everybody comes past asking, saying, hi doctor, this, that, the other. And she says, you're not a heart doctor, are you? And he says, why, yes I am. Yes, she jumps up, she runs down that street in that hospital gown, gets out of there as fast as she can. The false Mormon cult prophet, Russell Nelson, heart doctor, half as old at 95 as his fraud of a cult. He is doing his tell-all memoirs. And he, of course, has them writing it down for him, and he tells them all about that 60s and how the Muslim cult, the Mormons are a spin-off of the Muslims. He tells them, how Brigham Young had those 50 wives? Can you envision those knocking on your door, juggling 50 wives? Yeah, it's a spin-off of the Muslim cult. And he had to pick up Lee Harvey Oswald, store him in Utah for a little while before he did his thing. So Russell Nelson is the Mormon cult false prophet. Half as old as his fraud of a faith. He's 95, I believe, give or take. And yes, he gets pushed around everywhere by Jim J and Charlie M. And they happen to be on a hill, and they forget to put the brakes on, so as they're getting a little lunch from one of those sidewalk kind of things, he starts to roll, and all the way down that hill, then into that lake. Oh, make sure you get that kind of stuff on video. So the false Mormon cult prophet Russell Nelson, heart doctor, 95 years old, half as old as his cult. And he spends all his time in a bed. If he has to go somewhere, they push him on that bed. You have big Mormon cult pervert missionaries, Jim J, Charlie M. Yeah, like the big ones, the mean ones, the perverts you see casing the neighborhood when the only one's home are the kids after school. Anyway, he is on that bed. He's not outside anywhere. He is with, Jim J. It won't scroll even. He's with Jim J. and he's about to take his pills for the night, go to bed, and he looks over that big aquarium with that talking salamander, and he hovers over that big red button, and he says, "Tell me when, evil master, tell me when." Charlie M are in a neighborhood. No, they're not casing as Mormon cult perverts that neighborhood when the only ones home are the kids after school. They're working with Randall Stevenson, who, yes, gets his hands bloody placing cowardly Husseins. He's the CEO of Dallas, Texas-based AT&T. He gets his hands bloody hijacking America's lifelines, like when you try to call me, 424-229-4140, then gets his hands even bloodier, altering phone records to cover him up, his crimes. That's what tells you it's a Senate subcommittee kind of thing. He's worried about that. Anyway, they got the phone box torn all apart, and they get some drops of red substance from the telephone pole right next to them, and yeah, it's that blood of their evil handiwork. Dr. Cater is in his waiting room, and he is just angry as can be. Someone has placed an image, full-page image, 8x10 image on the coffee table that's out in the waiting room, and a lot of the folks are snickering, laughing, and he's red in the face, he's yelling, he's screaming. Oh, that's upside down. He's yelling, he's screaming, and he says, "I want to know who did this, who put this here, who?" And the receptionist says, "Oh, it was your ex-wife." Yeah, here's the image, if I can find it real quick. "Was your ex-wife?" Yeah, he got a good lawyer. She's not getting half of the profit. So she's emailing, texting it to all his patients. So Rose, David Rose, is relaxing at that ugly as sin Mormon cult temple that's right behind St. Frederick's in Monroe, Louisiana. And he and a couple of others, Stevenson, Blanchard, and a few others, they're going to a Catholic schooling, but they're Mormon cult fanatics. And they'll get those breaks they wanted, or they need to be active in the Great Wall of Evils stuff. And yes, I saw them a few times with those elder pins on their chest at that Catholic high school that I went to, yes. Manson Ball guy in a wheelchair. Charlie M have gotten the false Mormon prophet, heart doctor, Russell Nelson. They've got him to address the Mormon cult missionaries going off all across America to do intel for the Muslims, Muslim cult. And yes, case those neighborhoods when the only ones home are the kids after school. The two missionaries, Jim J and Charlie M, have them there to address the other missionaries on their way. And he says, do us right. And remember, if they're going at us too hard, let me know, and I'll give them what for. And yeah, they're inside a missile silo. Remember to ask them when they knock on the door, does your cult have thermonuclear capabilities? A director, Ron Howard, is smoozing with some folks at a fancy Hollywood type party. And he says, oh yeah, the Mormons were always around that set of, Andy Griffith, Mayberry kind of stuff, always around. And I hear they're also on Ozzie and Harriet sets and all those 50s and 60s kind of things. In case you're wondering why they've all got that gosh darn heck kind of thing going. Remember to make that video. Have you had that called to me and asked doctors what they think of that? And the image Laurie and Bridget Bond earned them. Mormon cult prophet Russell Nelson, a heart doctor who is half as old, he's 95, 96, as his fraud of a faith. He's reminiscing, he's got real religion late into his 90s, and he's telling folks all about it. He's writing his memoirs of all the street unseen business stuff he did over the years, and he says it must have been the 70s or the 80s, because I was up into my 60s and had my assistant doing stuff for me like this. But we went to the Mideast, and yes, they didn't tell me how bad it was. Osama needed a heart transplant, and we didn't have much on site, so I had to transplant a camel's heart into Osama until we could get another donor. So some Mormon cult princesses have gotten a tip from the Muslim, their sister faith, sister cult. You know, Brigham Young had like 50 wives. Can you imagine those folks knocking on your door? Mormon cult perverts casing the neighborhood when the only ones home are the kids after school. Can you imagine them juggling 50 wives? It's a Mideast thing, and yes, even in the Mideast, it's Mother Nature being slapped in the face. But they got a tip about a little lady with lots of cats, and they rest on over, push their way into her home. And yes, they're going to try and bilk her out of her life savings, but Granny hits that couch horn and sends them running to the thrones. And Luke lived just across the state line from Utah. And Ray talks Luke into doing that. Let's go see what they're doing in those ugly as sin Mormon cult stuff flying off my lap. Ugly as sin Utah temple, so they go to do that, and they say they're just witnesses, and they have those audio makers, video makers rolling, doing the Geraldo thing. And they're surprised. They get down on those knees, and they put that head to the ground, and then they pray to that 9/11 Muslim devil down below. Call all Mormon cult folks on that and try to call me with them on speakerphone. Ask them, what's your part in America's High Tech Lifeline? Olfactory looks out into those faces this Sunday in the pews, and he sees Jennifer. And after the church service, he goes to talk to her and says, I haven't seen you in quite some time. Not since your parents brought you in. And Jennifer says, oh, a religious epiphany. The Mormon cult perverts were casing those neighborhoods when the only ones home were the kids after school. And I'm missing one. She, of course, answered the door. She didn't know who it was, and she said, no thanks. And right behind them was a vision of Jesus saying, they're not with me. Go see Father Olfactory. Mormon cold prophet currently. Russell Nelson, heart doctor, into his 90s, 95 or so. He got his training as a doctor after, yes, doing real work in the military. And was a doctor during the Korean War, and one of the guys he worked on, he's telling folks all about how, he'd say, would you like a Book of Mormon? He gets credit for, back then he got credit for wrangling folks in, and if they wanted to be a Mormon cult pervert, they got better treatment and as such. Do you remember Mass? That's from that Korean War kind of thing. So Dr. Rapetti, I hesitate to call him that, has walked out into this waiting room, and he says, nurse, receptionist, whatever, come quick. And he says, why is this here? Yeah, he does handle folks for the Mormon cult and get them into that fraud of a cult, but he doesn't want them leaving it right out on the counter, the coffee table. And he picks it up and he says, who did not take this with them? I handed it to him personally in the examining room. Who did not take their Mormon cult cartoon Bible with? And he opens it up and it's got an image, that one. Or perhaps he's got the Dignity Health one, that's his. The Governor Newsom is in a hot tub with the current waves of Mormon cult perverts. And he says, no. I'll let you run wild. In Eagle Rock, harassing that Christian in a wheelchair, the sooner we can get rid of all these damn tourists coming out to California, the more we can focus on, the cowardly Hussein placing kind of stuff and other fraudulent kind of stuff. And there's that horn outside. Yes, it's that Saudi Arabian truck dropping off a whole lot of bloody money for Governor Newsom. Remember to call him up, try to call me. Ask him when else your phone won't be allowed to work because of his treason. Sergi has just been rolling around in his cash room, knee deep. That off the books, under the table kind of cash, and yes, he's got some Mormon cult perverts he invited to go do that with. And he's having his assistants, pat them down, make sure they're not taking any of the cash with. And he gets that call from Governor Newsom, telling them all about the latest shipment of cash from the Mideast, the Saudi Arabian royal folks. You know, the ones putting hits out on folks and such to discourage freedom of speech and that kind of thing. And Newsom calls and says he got a new shipment, and be sure you call up Schwarzenegger and tell him that too. Siren 911, Flight 93, check-in, post-in 5. Be on the side of those driving the tanks, the jeeps, the jets, the side of children and truth. Get the truth out about America's hijacked lifelines. Not one Flight 93 checking over a decade of asking. Now to my parable on Melton, son of Parker and Mary. And some Mormon cult princesses, older ones, not the ones on the mission, have gone to see Russell Nelson, false Mormon cult prophet, who is half as old, 95, 96, somewhere in there, as his cult is. And they say, oh dear, he's already there. And Russell says, what? No, stupid Jim J and Charlie M left me out on the sidewalk to go get lunch. And he's red as the devil in that bed of his. Honey, you gotta help me. Yes, Arnold Schwarzenegger has run to his wife and he tells her they know all about the Mormon cult stuff, the Muslim cult stuff. It's about to hit the fan. What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? And she says, calm down, honey. Just tell everyone that you're Catholic and it'll blow over. And his aide walks up and runs up. And he says, you gotta see this, you gotta see this. And it's some YouTube stuff. All kinds of corruption documented, maybe another site other than YouTube as well. It's all about the corruption. That is the cowardly Hussein placing, and yes, Arnold's part in that. Make that video if you had it, call to me right now, 424-229-4140. Leah is a rape victim, and she's making a video of Mormon cult perverts casing her neighborhood when the only ones home are the kids after school and her. She runs a small business through the internet, and she demonstrates her phone not working as she tries to call me. Not one Flight 93 check call in over a decade of asking. No certified mail, no FedEx, no UPS. That's a lot of folks. Schwarzenegger, Newsom, Garcetti, the mayor of LA, them taking an active part. She gets out on video with her phone not working as those Mormon cult folks are casing. You tried to call me with them on speakerphone and many others. Tell your senator, I want you to look into this. This has been affecting our security as a nation for a long time. Just had a photo op. He's on his way to his limo, presidential motorcade, and lots of folks are calling out. Mr. President, why are you in bed with the Mormon cult? When else will my phone not be allowed to work other than when I tried to call Melton? Why are you conducting religious political censorship? Why aren't you looking into the danger to our nation that is California and Utah? And all those folks active in America's hijacked lifelines. And yes, they hold up quite a few signs. Some funny, some very realistic. It does make a nice poster, that flash drive. And they say, who placed you in office? Was it YouTube Susan Wojcicki? Was it Putin? Was it her billionaire boyfriend? Why are you not doing your job? Sarge has all the men assembled, especially those whose tour of duty is about to end. And he says, I can't help you. No one can help you from the military when this happens. And he shows them a nice documentary of folks who were recruited by the Muslim cult, the Mormon cult, sometimes used as a harmless kind of distraction for the Muslim cult. They were recruited after their part in the military, and now they're the subject of military intel. Finding out why they're doing what they do, finding out what they do. Especially with so many a part of that disinformation campaign by me asking you, check your lifelines for over a decade, not getting one Flight 93 check call. Get it on video. And Howard tells them again, I can't help you. You're going to have folks watching you, listening to you, mailing you his imagery. Don't be a part of the wrong thing about the streets or anything. Jack is in front of a civic organization, perhaps church organization, perhaps college. All kinds of folks he could be talking to, and he tells them a lot of very professional folks like doctors have been a part of our hijacked lifelines for a long time now, and I'm here to warn you about it. Don't get caught up in it. It will seem harmless. What they ask you to do, look at this. And he shows them videos of hundreds of Mormon cult fanatics with other folks they've roped in, going from Utah back and forth to Los Angeles to be harassing of me, a Christian in a wheelchair, who's been telling you about your hijacked lifelines for the longest time without getting one Flight 93 check call. Get them on video. They're traitors, nothing more. And Jack's educating the world about that. Old false prophet, excuse me, I'm a handsome bald guy. I have trouble doing two things at once. Unless, of course, they're attractive blonde girls. Anyway, the false Mormon cult prophet is reminiscent about his streets unseen business kind of stuff. See right there, my hand shook a little bit. I'm growing a new pair of eyes, whole new body. But that's 1 in 20 of those things you see with very bizarre looking shaking. That's folks on hand with high-tech toys. Back to my story, my parable, excuse me. He's talking about how they came to him back in the 70s and they said, we need it to work quick. The the Chinese don't want, the messy stuff interfering with their state's event with Jonestown, and so he, gave them the right poison that would, they're not going to be throwing up, it's really quick acting, they're not going to be, pooping and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, he's telling all, he's got real religion, and he's telling all about the streets. That false Mormon cult prophet, Russell Nelson, half as old as his product of faith. Mormon cult doctor has gone to a non-Mormon cult doctor like Repetti of Dignity Health or Mesa just down the street on Eagle Rock, or Bartlett, I want to say, or Barrett, I'm not sure. But he says, you got to help me, you got to help me. I messed up and they know it. Yeah, those bizarre looking folks who knock on your door in their own little world, when they're in their own little world, it's kind of, you don't want them as your doctor, do you? So get the truth. You try to call me in front of them and all doctors in bed with a Mormon cult, Muslim cult, you name it, anything. Can't give you a good answer about this. Me asking for a 911 Flight 93 check for over a decade, not getting one. Get it on video. Post. Picking up his heels on a Saturday night. Yes, he likes to cross-dress in that dress, go off base to a nearby bar and just dance the night away with some Mormon cult perverts. And one of his men walks up to him and says, you can't do this, be in public with the Mormon cult. And he says, he forgets he's wearing a dress, and he just talks like being a general. He says, oh, what's it gonna hurt? We'll harass a Christian in a wheelchair, I'll show you how to do things, and it won't come back and bite us in the ass. Look for a lot of military folks on that chopping block and stuff. The one and only son of Carter and Mary says and does doesn't go anywhere. Documentaries of your treason. will get you before the Senate subcommittee. Promise from the one and only. We are at a Mayor Garcetti photo op, and a college student is there, and he's holding up a big 5. I got plenty of them. A lot of other Flight 93 check imagery as well. And the college student, holds up his phone, and girlfriend's there, tries to call me, and he asks Mayor Garcetti, why aren't you doing something about America's hijacked lifelines? This man's been asking for Flight 93 checks with these big 5s here for a long time, a decade, and he's yet to get one. And Garcetti looks a little closer. He says, what big 5? What man? Yeah, I have that trouble a lot with Jewish folks. Can be kind of nearsighted. That's why I tell you to print out those 5s and bring them up close to the front and ask him about that Flight 93 check. Not one in a decade. I'm Milton, son of a carpenter and Mary, and I want you to know it's not just the Mormon cult and Muslim cult and the Catholics, Catholic doctors in particular, in bed with them in Louisiana, Utah, and California. It's not just them that I'm picking on. America's hijacked lifelines, the world's hijacked lifelines, affects everyone. So make sure you try to call me up in front of all the heads of all those churches worldwide, like the Christian Science folks. You know them. It's the one with the celebrity, I think, wants to make a religion out of taking off folks' faces. I got news for them. They already did that. The Chinese did. I knew this Chinese guy in Monroe, Louisiana. He was introducing me to his family. He said, come over here. This number 1 son. And then a little while later he said, look, this number 2 son. And I said, how many sons you got? And he said, oh, just the 1. And yes, when those Chinese folks talk about losing face, it can be very literal. Son of a carpenter and Mary. Dad, a carpenter, worked on skyscrapers. Mom, Mary Ann. I'm son of a carpenter, Mary. I get to tell parables. And yes, no, girls, I am not a supermodel. Just a handsome, bald artist who needs you beside me. Building Jesus' Immaculate House, those 1,000 points of light to inspire the future and the present to greatness. Let me define graphic art with you beauty girls as we do that. And remember, take all of my Flight 93 check imagery to those politicians and others, like Greenpeace and stuff like that, photo ops, and ask them, when else will my phone not be allowed to work? Why aren't you doing something about that? It's been a decade he's been asking for a Flight 93 check without getting one. It's all of our AT&T livelihoods, guys. And it's our AT&T lifelines as well. 2nd, 2019. My photos and videos. I'm Melton, the John Melton Brady, son of Carpenter and Mary. And my scroll isn't scrolling. There we go. And yes, an elderly nurse in a rocking chair now, retired, talking to someone of the streets of the unseen business and saying, oh yeah, I remember that son of a bitch Nelson. Sadistic doctor. He used to do that shell game with big coconut shells. As the patient was on the operating room there, and he'd move that around and around, and he said, watch the heart, watch the heart, where does the heart go? And if you chose, as that nurse, yes, the wrong button he picked up, there's nothing there. Well, seems true of that patient. Writing his memoirs, he explains in that very first page that guy's typing down for him, that he has been a Mormon cult fraud. He has sinned against the world. He has sinned against medicine. He's a heart doctor. He's half as low as his fraud of a cult, the Mormon cult in Utah there. And he has seen the light, now that he's about to see the light. And he's writing his memoirs, tell-all memoirs, if you know what I mean, all the stuff he's been involved in as a heart doctor on the streets in the unseen business. Stay tuned. I'll get you some more of the false Mormon prophet's crimes as soon as I can get to it. False Mormon cult prophet is telling his memoirs. He's a heart doctor. He's half as old as his fraud of a faith, fraud of a cult. Of the fifth. Photos and videos are made, and I'll show you the joined later on. He's writing his memoirs, and the guy's there typing away, writing away. And he said, oh, I remember the first time I met Osama bin Laden. Yes, before Barack Hussein Obama was a gleam in that bloodthirsty terrorist's eye. He met him, fifth, yeah. And yes, he's made a few, what do you call them, tent calls over the years. Make that video, you had that call to me. You know where the fun stuff, the mean stuff ends. Your family's life might be hijacked by the likes of the Mormon cult. Russell Nelson is the current Mormon cult false prophet. And this is way back. He's 95, half as old as his fraud of a faith. And this is August 1st photos and videos. I'll show you the joined at the very end. And his dad goes into his bedroom and he sees some rattling knees back behind some clothes in the closet there. And he says, son, go into medicine. Be a heart doctor. And yes, he was for the Korean War. And you won't have to worry about, you know, doing real work in the war, Korean War there. Damn, I took a lot of photos. Look at all that. Yeah, I got some more flower photos on the way. And yes, this right here is the join folder. All as one big parable for the end of the day. False Mormon cult prophet Russell Nelson is talking to a guy hooked up to all kinds of machines in the ER or the ICU kind of thing there. Says, oh, I don't want to bore you, but I wanted to tell you this story about back when I went on my mission. Oh, this is my daily photos and videos for the 3rd. I'm a little behind. It's a couple weeks later. He tells him about that story, how all the men folk were overseas fighting the war when he was 18, and yeah, it made it fun. In case in those neighborhoods when the only ones home are the kids after school and those women with their men folk overseas. And he says, oh yeah, I have to tell you, yeah, you didn't meet the criteria, you weren't rich enough. Oh, damn, look at that. So you don't get the heart. And as he gets up to go out of the ICU there, he pulls that cord, and yes, there goes Mr. Williamson.